Back to One is presented by the HBO original Mind Over Murder, directed and produced by Nanfu Wang, currently available to stream on Max. In Mind Over Murder, Wang uses a decades-old murder case to widen the lens on the fallibility of police and judicial procedure. An unforgettable true crime story becomes the springboard from which to probe the nature of truth, the malleability of memories, both real and recovered, and the burden of wrongful convictions on us all. Nominated for Gotham, Cinema Eye Honors, and Film Independent Spirit Awards, Mind Over Murder has also been lauded by the critics. The Hollywood Reporter hails the series as a portrait on the power of art, while the Wall Street Journal calls it astonishing and enthralling. Mind Over Murder is currently Emmy eligible for Outstanding Documentary Series. More at HBO Max, fyc.com.
I think for all of the thought that I put into the show in every single area, one place I put absolutely no thought into is my performance.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Dave Burd is an actor. He sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work.
Dave is the best show on television.
I love that beginning.
I keep telling people that. It feels like people don't believe me, and I need to force them to watch it. And it's a hard thing to do. And so that's why I was begging your people to just let me talk to you, because I want to use this as a way to get people to watch this. When I see something like this that I know a lot of hard work went into and that is succeeding. And by that, I mean, things don't succeed a lot for me because I'm a very snobbish person, especially with comedy. So when something succeeds, it's like a miracle these days. And your performance, particularly in this, especially in this season, needs to be highlighted. So you have been for me this. I'm not a big rap fan. So every time you release the video, it was a comedy event for me. Yeah. And so when I heard that you were doing a show, though, I became worried because I wasn't sure if that kind of style of acting, especially when people play, quote, themselves, usually it falls a little short for me. It becomes performative. And it feels like if somebody's slipping out of the zone that I know them for in terms of comedy, I start to get worried. But the worry goes away with each episode. And now this season, I feel like it's masterpiece after masterpiece, man. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass here.
Thank you.
And so I know a lot of hard work went into this. But let's just start this way for people who may not know you at all. When did you first realize that you were funny? And what were you doing to make someone laugh? Was it a physical thing?
I don't think I've ever been asked this question, by the way, so which is kind of surprising when you really think about it. But when I think of a few flashes come into my mind, and I'd have to really think about which one came earliest. I remember at my aunt and uncle's wedding anniversary party in Boston. I went in front of everybody and I danced I think I was just watching Elvis footage or something, and I danced in front of my family like Elvis, and I got a real big reaction, and that's one moment that really sticks out in my brain. The moment that that I really think is probably the number one moment was basically, you grow up, and I've always been everyone's funny friend. In suburban Philadelphia, I was always just the feedback I got, was, oh, you're funny. And you grow up in this one isolated friend group, and that's the feedback you're getting. But who knows if it's just maybe my friends are just an easy audience. I don't know. But then when I went to overnight camp and I was plopped in with a whole different group of boys who had never met me, and I didn't have any reputation preceding me or anything, they were like, oh my God, you're an alien as far as how funny we find you. And immediately I got this kind of, from my bunk at camp, this I felt like a star amongst my bunk. And I think that feeling, and then to the point where our camp does a talent show every year. And I had, we were just 11-year-olds, and the camp went all the way up to age 15. And I had nothing planned at all, but like my bunk was just so enthusiastic about how funny I was that they started chanting, "We want Burd, we want Burd." We actually put the scene in the show in season 2. And then the whole camp starts chanting, "We want Burd." Half of them probably didn't even know who Burd was, and then I walk up, and then I had no plan, and I walked up on stage, and I think I did a few things. One of the things I did back then was I was really good at drumming on my stomach. I went up there and I had no plan, and I stomach drummed, and I've even looked at some of this I have like a snippet of footage that I can't access right now because I don't even know where I'd find it. But like, when I look back at it, when I watch this footage, I think to myself, that boy is very like Andy Kaufman-esque. And I just remember thinking, like, feeling like such a star afterwards. And then every year, I always did the talent show, and I was always the last person to do like up every year. And the whole camp always chanted, "We want Burd." And I just kind of had this legend at my camp and then I also had this kind of vibe in my, normal, like, then I went to high school and and so I always knew from pretty much like 10 years old on that, like, man, my gift in life is making people laugh. And then I thought to myself pretty early, like, how can like, this is my destiny, is to be like a comedian, and I looked at, I was like Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen and Larry David. And I'm like, I don't think these guys began as anything other than their friend group's funny friend. And then they made their own moves to get where they got. So I thought to myself, how can I make something that gets, with the internet these days, that can be viral enough to carry themselves to the guys like that, to the South Park guys who, like, and then they'd be like, "Who's that guy? And so that kind of, I'm jumping around, so maybe I'll stop there.
No, but this is interesting for me because what you're saying is that you, even from a young age, knew how to kind of outdo yourself every time, or you weren't afraid of the pressure of that. And that kind of gives me an idea of what's going on here, because when you do release these videos that initially really became viral and you're doing that in that space, the idea of, okay, I'm going to now up this and do this kind of work on a show might be scary to some people, but you had this confidence that you can rise to the occasion, it seems.
Now let me say this, I'm kind of this like juxtaposition of like extreme like rapper, like I'm the best in the world like confidence, but then also like total neurotic Jewish anxiety. So it's not the case where I didn't feel the pressure. After that first talent show, the next year, I was like not sleeping nights. I was like, how the hell am I gonna, like, I was like, what did I sign myself up for? Why did I do this? And and I still feel that way about certain aspects of being an entertainer today. Like it's a lot easier to like be able to shoot something on my own time, like my old music videos, for example. I got to like, it was very much like DIY, like me and a guy holding a camera going around figuring it all out. No like unions or like having to like play by any sort of rules, get locations, like none of that. It was just us figuring it out. And then it's kind of like, you don't feel the pressure of like the sunlight or the day, because you just get to do more tomorrow if you feel like it. And there's no pressure of nailing the performance because I control the edit and I do, and that's a lot easier than, say, I remember the first time I had to perform like live on like Conan O'Brien. I had to like rap, and like one of the most stressful days of my life, because I gotta like look cool, like in an unedited fashion as a rapper and not mess up. And, what's the upside here? It's just like successfully making it from A to B and like people being like, oh, okay, he exists. But the downside is like failure on kind of a national scale. So it's like, I'd say live TV performances, like really still to this day, as confident as I am in like writing and acting and performing even, it's like, I always thought to myself, man, I would watch growing up and I'm seeing Billy Crystal host the Oscars. And I'm like, that's going to be me. Like, I'm tailor-made to host these things. And I think about that now as an adult, having been in, and I'm just like, I probably could be a great host for the Oscars, but do I want that? It would give me so much anxiety. And I kind of do wrestle with like that. It's like, even the Super Bowl, I used to be like, I'm going to perform at the Super Bowl. You couldn't pay me enough money to perform at the Super Bowl. Like, why would I want to do that? It's like, it's so stressful.
Well, someone might say then why even go into making a television show when it's outside of your comfort zone, when you were having people were waiting for your next video. And so what is the reason there? Was this always the dream?
Always was the dream. Not necessarily a television show, but like when I imagined myself as a kid, like succeeding in life, I always saw myself on a screen being funny. I didn't see myself rapping. I didn't see myself stand-up comedy, like holding a mic at like the Improv. Like I just always saw myself like making Happy Gilmore, making Knocked Up, or like Super Bad. You know what I mean? So I always, and I don't know if it was movies or TV or whatever. And then, so I thought, how am I going to get noticed for being this level of a comedic talent? And I could always rap for whatever reason. And I saw like Lonely Island, Andy Samberg, and then they were like the only people in the comedic rap space. So, and they were massively successful. So, and they had a full monopoly. There was no one even competing with them. You know what I mean? There's an industry with a whole monopoly. Yeah. And I thought this is a good way for people to notice, because rap videos in general are very DIY and cheap. So it's like, I could like, try to write like make like a pilot and put it on YouTube or something, but the lighting's going to suck. Like, it's not going to look right. It's not going to be like of the quality that we're used to when we watch like a TV show or a movie. But a rap video, like, or a music video, kind of has like the certain DIY quality to it inherently. And I just thought this was an interesting way that I could stand out immediately. And what happened then was that I just, discovered that I had like a lot more musical talent than I had any idea. And, I say this knowing it's a funny thing to say, and I say it jokingly, but it is kind of true how I feel, because my whole life I felt like you are a comedic star, and I felt like Batman, in that regard. And then without ever knowing that I was even musically talented. And then so to find out that like, oh my God, I'm capable of making like 6 different, like I have 6 platinum songs, 6. And I'm just like, I didn't even know that I was musically gifted. So it's like believing your whole life that you're Batman, and then finding out, oh my God, not only am I Batman, but I might also be Superman if I dedicate enough like time to like figuring out how so yeah. And the music took on a life of its own. I know that's a very arrogant thing to say, but I'm just a guy like observing all of this, and I'm like amused by it, and all I do is just work as hard as I can to maximize my talent.
I mean, it must be hard work, because
it's the hardest thing ever, making this show.
Oh, so tell me about the beginning of the show, though. Obviously, people would be idiotic if they weren't trying to find something for you to make them money. Like, here you are making videos that everyone loves, and then it'd be idiotic if the money people weren't like, let's make this guy make money for us in some kind of show. Is that the way it started?
No, I didn't have like money people being like, how can I monetize this man? It was more just like, I believed in my heart, like the way I'm talking now, like the Batman and Superman comment that I just made. I was saying that 7 years ago or 5 years ago in the pitch meetings. I was like, guys, I'm a rapper. Like it's insane to me. Like I literally the rapping got so successful that I was going on tour. I was like, really like living the life of a rapper. I was like always traveling. I would, and I'm experiencing life where I'm like, signing autographs after a show, and I'm a guy who never got any women his whole life. And 2 girls are coming up to me after a show and saying like, we'll both give you head at the same time right now. And I'm like horrified at it. I'm like, well, I don't even know you. How could you take that position? And I just knew like, when I thought about how can I show my comedic voice, I realized like, wow, what better landscape than like my actual life, because the life that I'm living as like rap is the new rock. There's kind of nothing. We all love pop culture and like rock and roll stars or whatever, and rap has become that. And it's kind of ironic, fully ironic, that like a nerdy Jewish guy kind of ended up being how many white rappers are there that are successful? There's like, right now, like, and it's like under 5. And for me to be in that position was like really kind of incredible, but also like, I was like, this is the funniest setting in the world for a TV show. So, and what, and back in the day, probably 20 years ago, before pre-YouTube, like if I wanted to have a TV show like this, I would have been working on stand-up, and I would have had to rely on somebody walking in at the right time when I finally got like 5 minutes of stage time and said the right joke in front of the right guy who like knows Lorne Michaels or something. But now the power is kind of in the hands of the creators, and what the Lil Dicky early music videos that you were seeing it totally was designed to be a comedic engine. It was designed for someone like you to watch it and be like, this guy's funny. It wasn't designed initially to be like, this guy's the next like Eminem. You know what I mean? It wasn't. But those early videos kind of acted as the way stand-up would have been for me 20 years ago. Right. And it allowed me to get any meeting I wanted. And I would walk into the meeting and I would talk to them like I'm talking to you right now. And they'd all kind of look at me like, this guy, I don't know if he's crazy or not, but I'm very entertained by hearing what he has to say about this. And I have a feeling that, it's also not like a total risk. Like I have millions of YouTube views. Like I've obviously got something going for me. So to me, I would say in the meetings, like, this is, it's not a question of whether I can make like a good television show. Of course I can. Like, look at the landscape of TV. Honestly, to be quite frank, nothing's good. And like, so like minimally, I can make something good. The question we should be asking is like, can I make one of the best shows of all time? I think yes. And here's why. And like, I would say all these things. And I think I love like, pitch meetings. Yeah. There's probably no setting I thrive more in than a pitch meeting with like executives and having to tell them why it's like in their best interest to give me like $30 million to go make this thing.
So in the beginning of the idea of you playing this character named Dave Burd, did you understand how you wanted to present this person, how different it was going to be from you? Or was that something that kind of was molded in the writer's room?
I think everything's kind of always evolving, but like I had, just from a baseline perspective of like, what is this show? I was like, I'm a snob like you when I watch things, and I'm like, what I don't get is like, why does nothing feel real? Like when I watch all these shows, like any comedy I see, it's got this like inherent goofiness to it that like, yes, it can get some laughs and it can be really funny, but like pretty much almost immediately, I just don't believe I'm living in reality, And I thought, what I want to do is I want to make the show be the funniest show it could possibly be, but also be the realest show it can possibly be, because I think there's no more elegant version of comedy or cinema than something that feels real. Like, I'm just like not necessarily like a big like Lord of the Rings fan. Right. You know what I mean? Like I like grounding things in reality. And so my goal initially was like, I want, if I wouldn't do something in real life, like then I probably wouldn't, I want to have the same opinions I would have in real life. I would want to have that in the show. Obviously, we amplify certain things and we take little traits like, okay, I'm a selfish person. Let's take that and like drill down on it. And for plot purposes, will make me like really hyperbolized selfish in this moment to set up like the ultimate catharsis of like the end of season 2. Like, I think I behave in a more abrasive way on a funny level, but then also like maybe like interpersonally chippy, like, in the show for drama's sake or for comedy's sake. But I don't try to do it to too extreme of a level where I want to go. My goal is to be like as extreme as I can be without ever crossing that line of, well, this can't be real. This would never happen. Because that's, if I just showed my true real life, like in every phase, it'd be kind of boring, but so I try to create like, what is the most pushed version of this life that I can show that's not pushed at all, that's actually quite believable, and that's what I've tried to do. And even with the character, like you watch Curb, which is one of my favorite shows, and which is why I went out and like proactively sought Jeff Schaffer. I was like, I need the guy who's making Curb with Larry. I want that man. And I watched Curb, and I love Larry David in Curb. I never find him annoying, but like you get like sometimes people are like, he's such an asshole in that show. And I remember thinking, I don't really want to be. I want to be like the hero in my show that everyone roots for. I'd say season 1 it was certainly that. Season 2 we kind of had to be a little bit more chippy and a little bit more like, man, what are you doing, Dave? Like, you're messing it all up, to get that catharsis at the end. And then season 3, I think I'm back to being this root forable type character. But I probably the impetus of me being a comedian in the first place and wanting to get my friends to laugh was probably this core, human desire to want to be liked.
Right. And I
don't think that I didn't like abandon that while making the show. Like, I want people to want the character Dave to succeed.
So what happens when, and tell me how this has changed from season 1 to now, because I am noticing a definite, I hope this doesn't come off as an insult to the first season, but you have improved so much as an actor in this season. I mean, it's to the point where I'm going to light the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion on fire if you don't get nominated for an Emmy. I don't even know if the Emmys are in the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, but there's going to be arson there. I'm not sure I would have said that in season 1. I enjoyed season 1. So something has grown in you, and tell me what you think that is. Talk to me about what the first season was like and getting used to this style of filming, first of all.
Just in general, like I'm a guy who, yes, I'd made music videos and rap videos, but I'd never done anything scripted. I'd never done anything. I'd never been on a set before like this. I didn't know how anything worked. I'm like literally like a newborn baby, like walking into all this, but with complete control of everything, you know what I mean? And like, and a full opinion on everything. So it's like, and I think when I look at season one, I like watch it, and I'm certainly proud of it. And I'm like, my heart was in the right place, my mind was in the right place, but there's a learning curve. There's like, I didn't know like what a 2-shot was. I didn't know how to articulate like what I wanted from a filmmaking perspective. So I've never like sat down and been like, okay, we're going to attack acting this way. We're going to attack the cinematography this way. I just kind of all see it as this like one like combined force of filmmaking that I've just came in as a full novice with like, really logical and good opinions and I'd say good taste. I would say like that's one thing I've always like had, and I was able to like watch other shows and other movies and be like, I like this, I like that, but without knowing how to get it. Over the course of the 3 seasons, just the way the show looks like, and I really take a lot of pride in that, because I really think I'm the driving force of all these things. But it's the same people. We've just like honed in on exactly what I want. I've become more able to know exactly how something should look, more able to articulate how to get it, more able to like look at something and be like, oh my God, I hate what we're doing here. Why are we doing it this way? And I would have season one, I was kind of like trying to survive. I was like, I don't even know if I'm like, I didn't even know what any of the edited footage would feel like together. I was like, well, this even like, I was like, kept thinking like, how do I even know that like this will cut together well? Like, I have no idea. I'm just like kind of blindly, and it worked out really well. I think it was really funny. And then, so like I said, my whole life, I've had this vision of myself of like, I'm a comedian, and never was that vision, I'm a filmmaker, but now I totally, if you were to be like, what are you? Like, I don't think I'd say a rapper. I don't think I'd say a comedian. I'd say I'm like a writer filmmaker. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I really feel like I'm just as much a director as I am an actor and all of these things. And I love cinema. I love movies. I've always loved it. I just never realized that I was good at it, or what I didn't know how it worked, or like, really like, it's really just being logical and being a good problem solver and having good taste and like, being a good leader. Yeah. And I think the whole show has just like every season really, really stepped up to where now I'm watching it and it's exceeded my expectations. Like I can't believe, like I agree, when I watched the season, I'm like, all 10 episodes are slam dunk home runs. Like I don't feel like there's a weak episode, and I feel like they're all so different. Like that's the thing I'm the most proud of, is like we're just like genre hopping left and right. We're making a horror episode, then we're making a psychological thriller, then we're making like a Western, then we're making like a really frenetic, like wannery, like Birdman type of vibe. And it's just like, I think what allowed me to take those kind of risks are season 2, episode 9, when we like do the Rick Rubin episode. It was like I was like, let's just go for something really tonally different here. And, like make it more like Kubrickian and make it a little like less handheld, and like just go for and that, of the first 2 seasons, it's probably my favorite episode. And I think that like really mentally would made me like much more confident to be like, I'm going to nail this Mississippi trapped in a hurricane horror episode, because all it is just like, let's figure out what makes a good horror episode. Oh, okay. The type of score, the type of the way it's shot, like the vibe, the set. And I just, I attack every episode like it's its own short film.
Tell me what it's like in the writer's room here when you have so much control. Somehow I can imagine that kind of space being initially a little bit like hard to navigate, because you're a very creative person. You have an idea of what you want this to be. Here are other people that are hired to kind of give you ideas, but I can imagine they're being a little bit like, oh, you're not hitting it right. You're not hitting the thing that I want right. And did you have to mold them to what you wanted, or was it vice versa?
Yeah, no, a total concern of mine coming into this was like, I'm going to go in a room with these 10 people that I hire based off of like 1 hour, like sitting, talking to them and like create my thing with these people. But writers was probably my favorite part of the whole thing. It's like, I first off, I think it's just about hiring the right people who like when I go in the writer's room, it's like talking to like, I barely know you, but it's like it's like being around someone who you just like really enjoy talking to, who like you're intellectually or like on the same wavelength and you have the same opinions and taste. And, you know, when I say, oh, I don't want it to be like this thing or that thing, they like get it because they see this thing or that thing like the way I do. Or, and I just think it's like therapy for me. Like, you know, I as smart as I am in certain ways, and I couldn't be dumber in so many other ways. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I really value just on a human level these people's opinions and insights about life. And like I have lived a very privileged life where like, you know, I had a great childhood. I had a great family. I had a pie in the sky goal of like being a professional comedian. And not only did I have that come true, I also got to have this other pie in the sky goal that was so pie in the sky I didn't even consider it a goal of being a rapper. It's like playing in the NBA. You know, everything I've ever wanted in life has like fully happened for me. So I haven't faced like a ton of adversity. I haven't seen, and I think being able to talk to all these people who have different experiences, have lived different lives, are from different places, have different genders, different ethnicities, different socioeconomic like upbringings. It's just like you just learn more about life and the world, and you just gain more perspective. I think I'm just a smarter, more well-rounded human being by writing 3 seasons of television with like really smart, cool people who like teach me like this show at the end of the day is like a show about it's coming of age. It's about like a group of friends and people like, you know, trying to seek happiness in life really at the end of the day and like satisfaction and peace. And so, and as the real human being is making this show, trying to do the same exact thing in reality, you know? So I think it's all kind of hand in hand, like helping the show grow, helping me grow. And like, there are certain stories that we're telling season 3 that maybe we wouldn't have been able to tell season 1, you know, like even just like off the top of my head, an example of season 3 is like, season 3 is very steeped in dating and romance. And, you know, I always looked at like, you know, I was never the guy that got girls growing up. Like, you know, just wasn't that guy. And then I became a famous rapper. And all of a sudden I had all the social leverage in the world as far as like being able to wait for the one. And like, is this person good enough for what I feel like I deserve? Like, I don't know. And you know, even though I was really nice along the way to every woman that I dated and was very transparent and upfront about like whatever I was available for or not, there is like, you know, a very problematic, I think, stance that honestly men have in general as far as dating is concerned, where it's like the power dynamic is inherently in favor of the men in general because of just the way our like social structure is, where like, and I like thought of myself as like a really good guy who never would abuse his power, but like me even being like, I'm a famous rapper and I have all the social leverage and I have the pick of the litter. It's like, even though I'm not like going around like fucking tons of girls, there is some sort of objectification of looking at a woman just as like, is she good enough for me? Like women. And that's why I really love the line in episode 9 where the Robin character is like, you know, women aren't achievements. Like, you know, we're real. Like, I'm not here to like satisfy your ego of like what you think you're capable of. Like, I'm a real human being, like with a real life here too. And I think a lot of guys, especially now with online dating, like the world is your oyster. I'm not really a preachy person by nature because even myself wasn't aware of these types of behaviors being problematic 2 years ago. And it took me like meeting my girlfriend and having this writer's room and talking about dating for me to even see like just the behavioral wrongs that I was doing. And it's like, you know, making a show about this whole thing and a season about this is like, you know, maybe someone will watch it and be like, well, do I behave that way? Is that the right way to behave? And just like, I think that's really what art is supposed to do, is just have people question their decision making and how they live and advance humanity in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm. And these episodes feel really refined, even when it comes to like what they're saying, but then the execution of this stuff, not just in a comedic way, of course. I'm talking about the surprising thing this season is how much I'm on the verge of tears through a bunch of episodes. And then I talk about with my wife in a real like way where we're talking about ideas afterwards. And so like this feels like it's beyond just trying to make a half-hour show good. You guys seem to have raised what you were trying to do in terms of what a show could do. Was that a goal for you in incorporating all these writers, or is this something that just came about when you're just starting to incorporate reality into storytelling and adhering to the truth of these characters, and that just comes out?
I think it's the latter, which is like, if my goal is to like make things feel as real and human as possible, like it's like I said, like comedies can oftentimes feel so goofy, and it's because like their joke per second capita is so high.
Right.
And that's just, that's not what life is. Like, I consider myself a funny person who really like seeks humor at every moment. If you hung out with me, I would be trying to make you laugh the entire day. I'd be like hoping you'd be trying to do the same for me, and we'd be having a lot of fun and we'd be laughing. But at the same time, we're still, if we hung out for long enough, like someone, would have an interpersonal experience that would emotionally move them. And I just wanted, the deeper the show is and the more we care about the actual characters, the more there's actual stakes. Like how many shows do you watch that are great shows, but you couldn't care less about the fate of the characters, so I was like, if I want to make the most impactful show, you're going to want them to cry when Gaeta has like a super important moment in his life. I'm going to want people to like be emotionally invested in my finding love and like how much that means to me. And so I think that, when you spoke about people like having to get people on board with the show, I think there can be difficulty when it's like, it's a show about what? A guy named Lil Dicky who's like a rapper. And it's like, but like this show is like, I take a lot of pride in like the ability to be as lowbrow as possible and then come right back the next thing, be as like emotionally poignant and highbrow as possible. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive by any means. I think it's kind of the same thing when I started becoming a rapper. They're like, you can't be funny and make good music. I'm like, why? What if the music, if I didn't understand the jokes, I should still be able to listen to it and like the music and be like, this is fun to listen to. And if I understand the jokes, I should be able to laugh, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I think that honestly, my perspective, like the film and the TV industry is it's hard, man. Like the hardest thing is making the show. And there's so many things that go into it. There's so many people that go into it that are giving their like lives to making something like this happen. And the thing with me is like, I think a lot of people get worn down by the industry and they get jaded. And they're like, there's certain ways that things are done typically. And I think what really helps this show is I couldn't give less of a fuck about like what's been done in the past that's like made like, to be quite frank, like a lot of like mediocre output. Like, I think that really helps me to, and that's why the show, like people are like, this feels fresh because like I don't prescribe to the norms of what a standard 30-minute comedy should look or feel like. Like there were times in the beginning when I was making the show where people were like, why are we spending so much time on like lighting and like the way like it looking good? This is a comedy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, because I'm a filmmaker and I want the show to look good. Like what are we doing here? Like, I guess I'm a perfectionist, but like unlike in the show where I'm like really kind of abrasive along the way, I have the same kind of like bar in reality, but I'm just like a normal, compassionate, like logical human being that whoever I'm making the show with is hard. No matter what I'm asking out of them, even if it's hard, they're always like, yeah, I get it. If I were you, I'd want the same thing. And like, they all kind of just get it. Yeah. And they like me as a person because I don't know, I guess I just have a good person. I don't know. And so it's like, I'm always pushing everybody to be as great as they can be, but I don't think that they feel pushed off a cliff. I think everyone feels kind of lifted up.
Tell me what somebody like you who cares so much about this show, wears so many hats with this show, it's basically semi to more than semi autobiographical. How does a director come in, and there's many of them, and operate fully in that space with you? And what do you need out of them?
We have great directors on this show. But, at the end of the day, I've got a vision, and I'm the one who's going to hire the director that I think can lead us to achieve that vision. And I'm so hands-on in every aspect to the point where I've been told by people who work, they say that they've never seen anyone be part of every single, like I'm like literally in every like meeting, and every like I'm picking the wardrobe, I'm doing the score, in every edit session, I'm writing the scripts, I'm in every scene, you know. And if I wasn't in the scenes, I'd be directing every episode, to be quite honest with you. It's just so hard to, you know, I don't know how, you know, Ben Affleck does Argo. You know, I think to myself, is he just running back and forth? It's like a skill that I need to understand. But so I look for partners. Like, it's like really like, you know, in television is not like a movie. You know, I never made a movie where it's like, in the movie, the director is like, you know, it's my way or the highway. I would never hire anyone that was and I've hired some people who really have operated on my way or the highway, like things on their own thing, but they come in because they love the show and they love me, and they know it's going to be our way, and we're going to like arrive at a conclusion together. And I, you know, the directors in the show are so talented. They've all created their own shows. They've done their own things. They've directed their own movies that like I'm obsessed with. But at the end of the day, you know, they know that it's not going to be like a dictatorship where like I'm just like hands off and being like, whatever you say, Captain. It's just not going to be that way. It's going to be like us working together. Nor is it going to be me being like, shut up, you do what you're told. Like, it's not that at all. As I said, I'm relatively novice at this whole industry. I'd never even opened the Final Draft software. Like 5 years ago, I'd never even opened it. And like now I'm writing scripts for Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? So it's like everything is new, and I'm not so arrogant to think that I know how to do everything, or that I even want to do everything myself. I do wear so many hats that it's good to have help, and it's good to have. I'm working on episode 9 of season 2, and I have Alma Harrell, who's like an incredible director and like visionary, truly. Like, she's scout, like, you know, working with the choreographers for the VMA performance of episode 10, and I trust her, and I trust her taste, and like we're going, and she's sending me iPhone videos, and I'm like, oh, but can this part be a little more hip-hoppy, and like, you know, and it's just fine. And like there's comedy people like Tony Ascendor, Kitao Sakurai, that and you know, this show is so diverse that I want the directors to have a different the ability to be diverse in their own right, and to not offer only one particular set of skills. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's a collaboration between me, the director, and my DP Brian Lannon, who's like also directed the, you know, first episode of season 3, who's a major part in the filmmaking and the craft of all this thing. And we just get together and we all just talk like human beings and arrive at a conclusion. Oh, this episode is a horror episode. Let's figure out like what we want to shoot it like. Then let's figure out what these scenes are. We're just detailed in our approach. Locations is such a huge part of this whole thing. Really, you find good locations. It's shocking how much that can, like, even just the house my character had season 3, like, you know, that last episode with Brad Pitt and the stalker, we're stuck in a house for the whole time. Is it going to be as stunning if we're just in a random, you know, West Hollywood house that's just like, okay, probably not, you know? So it's like, and that's something I never thought about, how important locations were season 1. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, it's a good restaurant. I like it. You know, and then I would get in the edit and I was like, why does this look so dumb? Like, this looks like such a dumb comedy. And I'm like, oh, because I picked this dumb fucking restaurant where all the chairs are red, and I didn't realize that I would hate it. Like, you know, and it's things like that. Now I just know what I'd hate. Like, I'm like you, where it's like I hate everything or I love it.
Right.
And I just figured out how to get what I love.
Yes. One of the special things about this season is the supporting actors that come in for one episode sometimes, or more than one occasionally. They're all performing on the level with everyone else, and it feels like tonally they're all getting what the show is, and it feels like you're feeding off them, they're feeding off of you. I'm assuming because you have your hand in everything, your hand's also in the casting of this. But what is that casting process like for you? Because you're going to be in this.
Yes, we cast everyone, and I make every selection myself. You know, and I'll have, if I'm touring, I'll have like certain writers weigh in on like, who would you pick here? But you know, honestly, oftentimes with casting, for whatever reason, I'm like, no. I'm like, oh my God, thank God this, like, we got one. Like, there's one person that like I really believe in, and that's all you need is just one. And I've never like not had one, like, which is a credit to Wendy O'Brien, the casting director. Like, I'm like so close to being every time like being like, we don't have someone that I believe in enough for this. And I care so much about everything, you know, even like the waiter at a random restaurant scene. Like, I really want the person to shine in that moment. And there's always one. And I think it's the lack of jadedness in me where I just kind of treat everybody like human beings in the sense that everyone's different. So it's like, I know, just like, you'll work with one person, you can just tell by just talking to their personality, like, well, like, this seems like the type of person that I could overnote. Like I could just tell by talking to you at the the fucking crafty, just at the way you are as a person, that maybe you're a little more jittery, maybe you're a little more neurotic. Like, I think one of my best skills is dealing with people and like having social awareness. And at the end of the day, every actor is just a human being making their own logical choices and then like reacting to different problems or stimuli that occur on set. And so there's a lot of times where I have to like give note, and I'm right there in the scene and I know everyone's lines because I wrote it, and I'm like thinking, it's tough because I do wear these hats. So it's like I'm delivering a line and sometimes I'm not even thinking about what I'm saying. I'm thinking about, well, we got to do that again because I didn't like that performance of that. You know what I mean?
You're
right
directing as you're acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right when they say cut, I don't, for better or for worse, I don't go to the director and say, hey, would you tell this person to, like, I'm right in front of the person. I'd say to them, like, let's try to do it this way. And I'm giving people who are first-time actors notes, and I'm giving Brad Pitt notes. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's such a gambit and it's like the girl who played Anne Frank, who was like phenomenal. It was her first time on a set. And I remember thinking like, we're dealing with, like a child who's never, and so like I don't, and this is such an important scene on paper, one of the scenes I was most excited about the entire season, and I just learned very quickly that this kid was a pro, and I could talk to her how I would talk to Brad Pitt, and it would be no problemo, but like there are other kids that you can tell maybe not. So it's like it's just evaluating human beings and like just talking to them, getting their vibe, and seeing like what they're like. And, someone like Rachel McAdams, an incredible actor, I bet she probably wasn't used to the amount of changes that just occur like that on the fly with this show. Like, oh, like this scene was like this. Okay, it was 4 pages like this. We just rewrote 2 of them 15 minutes ago, Rachel. Is that okay? And, I think it takes the right type of personality to not like freak someone out who's like used to like preparing and like used to making movies where they're not, TV is a different animal, and like every day, like and I love the animal and I hate it in a way, but like there's something beautiful about the animal. It's like every day is like its own race against time and its own. I'm sure that's the way it is in movies too, but it's like I'm constantly like, I don't know what the word is, but like gambling and like being like, ooh, like, I'm going to take 20 minutes here that I don't have, and I'm going to spend it here knowing that I can probably make it up in that next scene because I care less about that next scene. Just a constant like give and take of like priorities and problem solving, and like every day has its own challenges budgetarily, time-wise. It took an hour longer in makeup to make me bald than I would have thought. Now I have 1 less hour to shoot the scene. And it's a constant game of problem solving. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's like being logical. And I think that's one of my biggest strengths as a human being is logic.
Yes. Another aspect I appreciate, which is incredibly hard for me to appreciate because of my high standard with it, is the meta aspect of a lot of this show. Yeah. We can't even use the word meta anymore. It's embarrassing when the word comes out of my mouth, but this feels like it has fully come into effect in this season in a way that feels it feels new. Like to me, there's old meta that feels old, like that people use and they still think they think they're creative, and it feels old. This feels like new, especially it's probably episode 3 with Jane Levy. Tell me what
it's called. Harrison Avenue. That episode about
felt like it really hit it. But there's been other aspects. Tell me, like, is this something that everybody understands in the same way, appreciates in the same way? Is this something you're reaching for, trying to tell stories in that extra added layer, or is this something that just comes about from the storytelling?
I think it's totally case by case dependent. Like, I think that Harrison, inherently, a show called Dave about a guy named Dave created by a guy named Dave, about the life of Dave. It's going to have all types of meta shit going on left and right. You know what I mean? And I think some things are just by nature of just the stories that are being told. Like I think Harrison Avenue is kind of an example of that. But other things like episode 9, where it's like you're seeing the perfectionism within the documentary like bleed over into the perfectionism as a dater and as a secret love, or in 10, where like, you know, my character's full on like ambition is like mirrored in front of him with like a psychotic person who feels the exact same way about themselves. That's by design. And that's like, you know, totally like, you know, just putting mirrors up to my character to like for that to see. But other times I just think it happens kind of naturally. And I don't know. There are times where I'm like, ooh, this is smart, you know, like, and there are other times where I don't think that at all. And then like afterwards, someone's like, well, this was so smart because of this. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm happy that worked out that way. Like, that is smart. Like, it's like after the fact I realize, you know, and it's just dumb luck sometimes. But I think the reason that it can even occur in the first place is because all of it just comes from a place of authenticity and honesty. And I'm really not trying to fabricate, even in the most extreme situations, such as like my bus blows up, you know, which is like, have I ever been in a situation where my bus blew up? No. But am I able to be like, what would happen if your bus blew up? And people thought you were dead for a day and your streams were going through the roof crazy. And people didn't know if you were alive or dead, but the second you come out alive, maybe you don't have the same streaming numbers. Like what I think to myself, even if I wouldn't act on it, would I have the thought, like maybe I should stay dead for another day? Like I can't lie and say that thought wouldn't cross my mind. In reality, I wouldn't act on the thought. And that's kind of like what I talked about earlier with like pushing it up to the point where maybe this could happen, but not ever taking it too far over.
Because we're getting the idea of how much you care, of how many hats you're wearing, again, of even being in a scene and not able to sometimes take off the director hat or the producer hat, even mid-scene. When I see a scene like the restaurant scene opposite Rachel McAdams, and I see you do something, a bit of physical comedy that I erupted with laughter. It's just, I forget what question she asked. The first
sex scene.
Yes. Your performance there. Okay. Knowing now, so I come into this interview in awe of that moment. And now I'm baffled because how are you able to relax enough? Maybe it's not relaxation. How are you able to have the skills in that moment to do that? And what take is that one? Are you a take one guy on that? Do you have to like, and then it's gone? Or is that a take 10?
First off, I'm constantly like punching myself in the head, being like, wishing I knew the analytics of like, oh, Gate is like great early takes. Like, you know, I wish I had like, you know, I'm an analytics guy in sports, you know what I mean? And I'd like never like, I need like a statistician to like join the edit so I can like, just next season, like know like what people's like where they thrive, because I don't know the answer to that. How am I able to relax? Like, look, first off, like when you talked about the acting improving, like there's nothing that I do that I've done differently this season than I did season 1. I have no, and you're not the first person who's told me like, man, your acting has stepped up, and certainly happy to hear it. But I think to myself, I wonder why that is. I have no idea why. I don't know why that is. I think for all of the thought that I put into the show in every single area, one place I put absolutely no thought into is my performance.
That's the secret right there.
I do nothing in preparation.
Yes.
I rely on my instincts at all times.
Boom. You just said the secret.
Yeah. I like, even with, and there are times like where I play kind of like very infrequently, but like the enlightened Dave is episode 9 where I'm the bald version of myself. I remember they're putting this fucking, you know, bald head on me, and we're already an hour and a half behind, and I'm sitting in the makeup thing, and I think to myself, I remember I was like, oh my God, like I haven't even thought about how this character behaves. Like I haven't even put an ounce, like And it's not lazy. There's just simply too many other things that I might like. Making the show is so hard. Like I literally work, I'm not exaggerating, for like 7 days a week, about 14 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week for like 6 months straight. Actually, more than that. It's like 4 months of writing, which is a little bit, that's like 6 days a week, 12-hour days. Then you shoot it. Oh my God, that's so hard. You're getting picked up at like 4 a.m. every day and coming back at like 9 p.m. and just going right to bed. And then editing has become the hardest part of the whole thing just because of the deadlines and hitting the post schedule and getting the thing out. Like the edit schedule has me working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day just to hit the air dates, which is, and it's not, I don't think it's me being a perfectionist. It's just me. I mean, I guess it's not this like with music, I feel like I can go endlessly like, well, maybe I could make a better song. I really believe that if I had all of the footage that I had for every season and I made the season and I had unlimited time and I made it. And then they Men in Black put that little flash thing in front of me and my memory's gone and I brought all the same footage back. It would be the exact same thing because logically, there's always a perfect, like the right take. This line is clearly just delivered better in this moment than any of the other takes. And you just like inch along until about, that's all 30 minutes have been accounted for. Every moment's as good as it possibly could be. And that's the end result. And that just takes time. But with the acting, it's the one thing that I just don't have time to prepare for. And I think it serves me well. Like I couldn't tell you when that Rachel McAdams thing is, but I'll tell you, I laughed so hard when I saw that moment in the take. And there's no, like, I'll be sitting there and my girlfriend would just be like hearing me hysterically laugh. And she'll be like, and I'm just like laughing at my own performance because I don't even remember half the shit that I did because it's not like a premeditated choice. I mean, there have been times where I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, this rapper who there's like a 3-episode arc is just not here. And he's just not responding to texts and he might never come. And I can't even dwell on it because I'm in this other scene and I have to, and like in between takes I'm like frantic, I'm on my phone like, oh my God, like is this guy coming, like, and then it's like action, and then I got to be like this light comedy guy or this like deeply emotional guy, and that's the hardest part when things are going a little bit wrong. But it's really do or die. What am I going to do, sit there and like ruin the take by like moping? I have no choice. I'm just logically able to be like, well, you're going to just, all you can do is just control what you can control. And I can control my performance here by trying my best.
You were talking about how autobiographical the show is. And there's been even some hint that, in a way, this is like almost like 5 years ago, kind of in that area. So one would think that eventually, and maybe even next season, it's going to become really meta when this character, Dave Burd, has a show.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that this is it. I'm not asking you if this is it, but I guess that's my prelude to just ask you knowing that this satisfies somebody like me, because you don't need to satisfy anybody else. You've succeeded. I love the show.
You're all I
it's
need.
The best show on television. It's the best show. You've done your work. Now when you go into that, now knowing when you sit down now, and you say, all right, Peter Rinaldi thinks this is the best show. So now
I don't disagree.
So what do you want, without spoiling it for us? What are you imagining that you would want to do with this show now?
First off, every season is like a new learning opportunity. Season 1 I watched and I'm like, really funny, really good heart, not on the level of filmmaking that I feel like I know how to improve this season 2. Season 2 comes along, make it more dramatic. We make it's better shot. It's like, but it's darker. I think my initial goal of like, let's make the funniest show on TV kind of took a back seat season 2 to, we're more than just a comedy. This can be dramatic. This can be, and I think for me, season 2 is way more artistically elevated than season 1, but I'm able to be like, put myself in the shoes of Joe Schmo watching it, who might really miss that light, funny aspect of season 1. So season 3, I was like, let's best of both worlds, this son of a bitch. And like, try to be as funny as we possibly can be while still gathering all of the artistic legwork that we've built, filmmaking wise, and try to make this perfect hybrid of like, and I look at season 3 as the best of both worlds, but it's really its own thing. But so I'm very strategic about that. And like, it takes so much time up that I thought to myself, like, man, do you shoot season 2 and 3 together? But with doing that, it wouldn't afford me that. Let's take a step back. Let's evaluate the final product. Let's see how I feel. Let's see how I can improve. And I don't want to take that away from myself. So it's like every time I'm able to like be like, how can we do it better? Now I do watch this season, and I think to myself, where season 1 I was like, oh, it'll be a breeze to top this. Season 2 I was like, I know how to top this. I watched season 3 and I'm like, that is gonna be hard to top, like, because I really feel like it's very well executed. But even on like, one thing I take a lot of pride in with this show is the season finales. Like, I mean, season 1 finale with the jail episode and the Breakfast Club, like, phenomenal in my opinion. Like, and then I was like, well, we've set this precedent of season finales. And then season 2, I think it was even more satisfying.
People are
like,
still talking about the season 2 finale. People are still.
And then I'm like, well, now we've really set a precedent, because now we've done it. And so I was like, well, how am I going to top it this year? And then so it became this whole, like, it's an hour-long episode with like Brad Pitt and like, Tanae, this actor who plays the stalker, is, boy, is she phenomenal. Amazing. I'll just say this. I don't want to give anything away, but I just have, like, in the way that I knew how to elevate it, and I have a good thought, and I plan on applying it. And I think
we really need to hear.
I've got it. I've got it figured out.
If you got it and there's a smile on your face, and that's all I care about. All I want you to do is not die now. Yeah. Just don't die.
Yeah, in the show or in reality?
No, in reality.
Yeah.
And when I have that thought of somebody, that's the ultimate compliment I can give someone, an artist. And I just say, don't die, because we want stuff from you.
And first off, the feeling, even though I've only known you from this Zoom, is mutual. Like, I do love you all the same. And I like it. I'd be lying if I said like your appreciation didn't like really greatly uplift me. Like, because I can tell that you watch a lot of things and you get it, and it matters to me. I care about like it not being just lost in this like grand sea of content that like, and so that does matter to me. And I look forward to making, I really am even though I was a newborn season 1, now I'm like, when I look back, when I'm 70 and I do die, like, I think I'm still in like the young child version. Like, I think I look forward to making movies, and I look forward to doing a whole lot of other, like, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg for me as a filmmaker and as a person in the entertainment space. And, I look at like Ben Stiller, and I'm like, what a career that man's had, where he's the leading man in like generational comedies, and he's just kind of under the radar pivoted to become like the best contemporary director, and he's like, Escape from Dannemora is like unbelievable.
Yes. Underappreciated. Yes.
Oh my God. It might be my favorite show that's come out like of the last decade. Like, and I couldn't believe when the first episode ended and it said directed by Ben Stiller, and I was like, is this the same? This is Ben Stiller? And then like I went back and researched, like, oh, he did Tropic Thunder, and I'm looking at Ben Stiller is a guy that he's reached out to me and like been like a little bit of a mentor to me, and he's a fan of the show, and I like look at a guy like his career as like something that I totally would love to have myself. So never did I think that I would be like want to be a director.
Yeah.
And now I can't see a world where I'm not a director.
Dave Burd, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you taking the time here. And I can't wait to see what you have in store for us on all fronts. Thank you.
Thank you. I seriously, you've made my day.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.